Yeah, we're mad as usual. This is the Liberal Buzz show, and here's what happened yesterday. It's a liberal issue, a civil rights issue. Our civil rights were being discussed without us, and we found out at the last minute, and we made it to that meeting. In the last like 12 hours, we found out about this meeting at 25 Van Ness, and there were familiar faces there that have been blocking us for 12 years, blocking civil rights to cannabis. That we were, it's a birthright. Cannabis really is, and so I was happy to find out that they had adopted a lot of Shona's ideas. Shona Gokenauer has worked very hard at securing rights for disabled and poor patients, and that's why I do this show for her. She provided free cannabis to my cousin, and it gave him 5 more years to live because he couldn't, even with $2,000 a month, he still couldn't afford all the cannabis he needed to survive. So I am indebted to Shona, and I will, and this movement is something that I believe in very strongly, even though there's just people that don't get it. They think, oh, well, we can buy it in the store, so what's the problem? Well, there's plenty of problems. And when they charge prohibitive prices, give the tax money to the police, I mean, that's a no-brainer. The first thing I heard just that was enough to make me vote no on Prop 64. So, yeah, so Shona will be calling in soon. So we went to this meeting yesterday, and like we said, they were trying to reinvent the wheel, like Shona says. The San Francisco Cannabis Task Force has burdensome rules to enact from Prop 64. That I'll give them that. And the panel, they were mostly composed of white people. I knew half of them, they were from being obstructed by them for over a decade, and Shona. Politically, they were smiling in our face, and you know how it goes. It's hard to lean. Let's put it this way. We've sat through so many meetings at City Hall for over a decade for cannabis rights, and so it's not just a VIP commodity. It'll be available to everybody, even poor people. And we're not even talking about just patients. I mean, poor people, everyone's a patient. We're looking at it, and they get that part of it. So they seem to get that part that, with the opioid crisis. So if there's cannabis available, they might be diverted from using opioids because cannabis is harm reduction. So we've got harm reduction meetings taking place. And we have a rather closed group, but it's a model for what should be taking place all over the city. A lot of people suffer from isolation. I'm not saying they're suffering if they're isolated, but we had 6 of us in that meeting room. Like I said, on 25 Van Ness, there was the familiar ones: Greg, myself, Kendra, John Axis, the guy who plays guitar at our groups in Dolores Park, and Leo. And the meeting, the free cannabis was the topic, like I said, and they were trying to have talk about our rights without us. And there she is. Shona Gokenauer.
Denise Story.
Shona Gokenauer is my guest speaker, and this is not her picture right here. I have the picture of the Martian saying, "This is why we don't visit you." So, anyway, I was talking about the people.
How do you know that's not my picture?
I've got you and Miss Lily up there now. So. And so I was just talking about how cannabis helped my cousin Ken Lima lived 5 extra years, and his disability check wasn't enough to buy the concentrates needed. He got a lot of money, but it still wasn't enough. And so you gave him the free cannabis for 10 years, and that's kind of how he lived longer, And you've extended people's lives, and Shona deserves, everything plated in gold at her house, She's just, she's got an aura that's gold, pure gold. And so, so you got me involved in this issue, and So yeah, we're saying that the patients were used as cash cows, right? And our rights to an herb that costs $10 a pound to grow, right?
Well, I mean, I think that to a certain extent, what happened is that patients were used as sort of the poster kids. And as you often say, Denise, in your wise ways, we don't mind that we were used. We mind that we were discarded.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't I'm quoting someone else, so, yeah.
Oh.
But thank you for that. Yeah. So, yeah, we're all a little bit coffee and wheezy, I guess. So we sat for 4 hours at this task force yesterday, and the members ripped off your ideas from over 10 years, around 2007, and Ross Mercarimi's non-binding resolutions for humanity. Well, they weren't. They were supposed to be binding resolutions, but of course the industry stepped in. Can you pick up from that?
Sure. So a great deal of the issue with me with what's going on at the task force level is that they pushed out the patients, and now they're acting like they're inventing the wheel when they're talking about compassion. So it's really problematic with co-opting the people's work. And the reality is they knew that Prop 64 could potentially stop compassion programs come January 1st. And the industry did nothing to prepare for it. We have patients who are dependent upon these programs being without medicine for 3 months. And all the solutions had already been well vetted. We had a set of recommendations from the patients committee, and they just sat down and went with the same network as always, acting like they were coming up with the solutions and had just found the problem, when we'd been addressing the problem all through the Campos task force before they destroyed it. The Lobbyist destroyed that task force, built their state legalization task force to reinforce a really bad law.
So that's to reinforce Prop 64. This task force was enacted after Prop 64 passed.
No, it was enacted prior to the passage of Prop 64 to secure the passage of it, stop the conversation about what would go wrong with it. And now you have patients who haven't had medicine for 3 months and about 70,000 growers in California that don't have a permit.
Yeah. So now how about the current regulatory scheme, with nonprofits who can't afford the green zone real estate, so they're working out of their homes, right? Because it's hard for the dispensaries to find a place to open.
Well, they can't actually work out of their homes now. You have to, in order to be on the legal map, you have to be zoned correctly. So all of these groups, and there's no nonprofit groups because you can't run a nonprofit with distribution of cannabis. So it has to be not for profit. But a lot of these groups have either gone underground or they've stopped functioning. So we're not kidding at all when we say that there's 60,000 to 100,000 groups, companies, grows, what have you, that have no permit that were in compliance prior to January 1st. So this is a huge clear-cutting of the California cannabis map,
Shona,
which is entwined with everything else.
Well, Shona, weren't there 63,000 legal growers before, and now after there's only 500 of those are permitted now?
That's what I'm saying. That's why the California Growers Association has initiated a crisis report. We're going to be going up to City Hall in the next couple of weeks to talk about the crisis in compassion. So basically you have you have just a very few businesses that are benefiting from Prop 64, and everything else has gone into crisis mode. People have been defunded. Patients have no medicine. Growers have no legal rights whatsoever. They're either in the black market or they're one of the very, very few people holding a permit.
Yeah, and the dispensaries don't want to pay the taxes on the weed they give away.
Well, what happened was that at the state level, you had a set of emergency regulations, which a lobbyist named Connor was able to insert the ability for compassionate care to continue. And then at the local level, Access of Love worked with Bill Barnes from Jeff Sheehy's office and got 2 baby steps that allowed compassion.
Yeah.
Because other than that, it would have been disallowed. But the catch is that there's taxes.
Yeah.
But I want everybody to step back a second and look that these are multi-million-dollar businesses right now that have the licensure. They knew that there was a potentiality of compassion not getting inserted and worked out because they didn't have their lobbyists work on it. So they could have saved up medicine. They could have prevented. If they knew there could be 6 months to a year before compassion was regulated, they should have stocked their compassionate shelves and made sure that their patients were served during this period where we're actually getting those laws together. Instead, the patients are left in pain. The growers are left in the black market.
Yeah, and Eric
just a few people are happy.
Well, Eric said there's not many people buying medical cannabis anymore. So that's a signal to me that they're going to phase it out just like they did in Washington State. Am I right?
You're right, and that has always been the intention.
Right.
And there's going to...
Hello?
That we're going to be no longer able to call it medical as the pharmaceutical... as national government steps in, because what we're doing is actually more curative, shamanic type of stuff. When you talk about Women's Alliance for Medical Marijuana and Access of Love and EVAC and Weed for Warriors and those types of groups, we're doing social support as well. So they're going to cut us out of the medical realm in so many different ways.
That's just... I feel like I was just kicked in the stomach. Okay, so...
it is a kick in the stomach.
So we've got these illegal lobbyists on this task force. Did they actually accomplish anything?
Well, they didn't vote on anything that I was able to understand. I didn't see any consensus vote or anything like that happen on anything other than just passing their agenda for the day. I think what they ended on was that the continuing discussion. So the next task force will probably still have compassion on the agenda, and we'll let people know about it. Only a small group of us were able to get up there for this initial meeting on it, but we need to take up that space. We need to have 100 patients show up and do public comment. They only have a public comment at the very end, so the public isn't able to influence any vote or anything like that, which is something that we need to address with them as well. And we just need to walk into that task force and take it over in the sense of balance, not in the sense of pushing all of them off, but saying, look, city, you yourself said this task force was not balanced. 3 supervisors assured us that they would diversify this task force and assured us that they recognized that it was lobbyist heavy. Not a single one of them has been able to take a move to do something, and talking about it and doing something about it are entirely different.
The inclusionary medical, the illegal lobbyists, we had the inclusionary medical cannabis task force. We were asking for a task force for patients. Now, what about this $300 for a Medican card now? And the Colorado Cannabis...
I don't know anything about that, and I don't know that that's real. I will call Dr. Jean, but Dr. Jean has been one of the few doctors in the medical cannabis sphere that has been willing to care for homeless veterans and everybody that can't afford. So I need to check into that situation before people are saying that that's a definite fact.
Yeah, okay, good. So, let's see what else we've got. We've got like 5 minutes. Now, we had that task force in 2009, right? And it lasted...
We had a task force in 2011.
And it lasted how many years? We've got videos of it.
Three till it's sunset. Basically what happened is they started meeting illegally to destroy any patient influence. They specifically targeted me. I mean, the minute we had a rotating seat program, and the minute that I became chair, they all tried to walk off and do all these things.
Oh, yeah, no quorum.
They ran out the clock on compassion continuously. They didn't like the fact that the sort of courtyard was filled with public comment and the public having a real dialogue. Now they've switched it around so that they control the dialogue. They have basically silenced the patients and say, oh, you guys can say a little bit at the end, goodbye.
That's what they did. Yeah, they made me shut up. I was the last speaker yesterday.
Right.
There were four of us. We need more of us.
That's their intention. It's not, they want to control the message. They want to control everything. It's one business network, which is highly illegal.
Well, and they're lobbyists. Who the hell appointed lobbyists?
The Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, well, do you know who voted and how? How they voted?
Yeah, they all supported it. It's an oligarchy in City Hall. There are a few cannabis people who basically pull all the strings.
Aye.
And it's hilarious that they accuse London Breed of being owned by white men when they're all owned by the same group.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's not true that London could very well be owned by a few, wealthy men, but so are they.
Well, our prior task force, they weren't even contacted about the meeting yesterday, were they?
The prior task force members,
the inclusive one,
advocacy committee that worked on all of the recommendations, not a single soul was contacted.
Yeah, I know your phone number's all been the same ever since I've known you. So your life work.
Right, but they have that material. They're all aware of it. Half of them were seated on that task force. It was, hey, we're going to show off the compassion programs that are industry positive, that are looking for grants from us, who are going to sing our song.
Okay, do you think we can find a billionaire to help us get real legalization?
I don't know. I sure hope so.
That's what we need. Well, we got about another minute. Yeah, any last comments?
Just keep, plug into the Access of Love page. We'll be posting updates. There's a big meeting going on in Sacramento today that I'll give some updates on tomorrow.
Okay, and the Access of Love page is on Facebook. Yeah, and that's a public page, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, and I want to thank you for all the work you do, Shona. Really, you were one of the...
Oh, Denise, you do 10 times more the work than I do.
you were the smartest person in the room with all those people. I felt like sitting with them. You were the only person who actually had anything smart to say. So thanks again, Shona, and I'll talk to you soon.
Love you, Denise.
Love you too.
Every day You were both the problem.